Hey guys, happy late Saturday night. Well, it's not late. It's 8:40. I was just sitting having musings, and I was like, I haven't made a video in a little bit. I saw my niece today, I hadn't seen in a while, and we marched around the block. We she played her harmonica, and she wanted me to play a flute, but I told her I was going to be the composer, so I was the composer. So thoughts. Why am I making this video? There's always so many paths in front of us, right? Do you guys ever think about this? And I know that we're going through a transition. If you look at the kind of the organism as a whole, there's like this slow down into what's our spiritual news telling us? Slow down into November, December. Every person I've met, every person I've run into is in some kind of state of transition. And it looks like sales are getting harder for people to sell, especially for coaches, consultants. More and more ads on Facebook. Advertising things like, hey, if you're a coach only making $10,000 a year, we can help you jack it up, right? So tons of marketers out there selling marketing ideas for people to get more clients when the consumer market's drying up. And we've got a large portion of the internet that's focused towards just gaming, right? Just pure gaming, pure escapism. We sell escapism because we want to escape the animal that's feeding off of us, right? So as a healer, and this is true for churches especially, and this is the one thing that churches get right. Doesn't matter, especially Christian churches, they do their best to create community where we can support the people that can't support themselves. And there are spiritual battles, right, for when you're in a poor or lack mindset. Especially if your productivity starts to go down, and, that's the dark side, especially as a healer, because it's easy to see, at least it is for me. And I let you guys chime in on the comments and just let me know what you think. What does heaven look like to you guys? I've said this before in other videos. I've made other videos about, heaven is a state of being in your heart space. I mean, if you imagine what this planet would look like, if we all surrendered ourselves to one another and just met each other's needs and didn't place anybody's needs above anybody else's needs, because that's what we see now, right? And it's a simple animal when you look at it. An animal wants to feed. It has a desire to feed. So it's a beast nature. We want to put stuff in our body. In the morning, we want to think about breakfast. Let's think about breakfast. What am I going to eat in the morning? And so fasting does help with that, right? You're not getting more attached to things. And then you understand that you can create your own state of being, run through emotional blocks. That process in and of itself, and the way if you put yourself in service to the people around you, puts you in a state where you start to realize that all you're doing is overcoming triggers, right? Things that are negatively affecting you and the way that you view things negatively affecting you, to create a good state of being. That process, and understanding that process, puts people into service in a way, but they still have to take care of themselves, right? So it's natural to create and naturally receive. So that's why I love YouTube, and there's so many great creators out there that just started creating on zero money, right? People that just went out there and did something they loved, and if they really loved to do it, they just started making money. And making this YouTube channel has probably been one of my primary things that I really love to do, because I always felt like I was challenging myself to become as open as possible, right? And stay detached from the outcome of how many people watch this video, or those things, right? So, yeah, there's always the dark side to every growth process, right? Half of the plant's in the dark. Look at a tree growing. Look at anything that's growing. Half of it's in the dark and half of it's in the light. You got to be open to receive. And so until you can kind of unlock parts of yourself that you need to unlock, you won't start receiving. So you're overcoming blocks internally. That process has to happen naturally. You, as the listener, or maybe you're being attracted to this channel because it has something that you are resonating with, right? Maybe you're going through the same process that I've gone through in the last 2 or 3 years, where you have to continually master yourself and stay creative in spite of not getting much in return. Because if you just up and quit your job like I did 3 years ago, it's actually it's all exactly 3 years ago, I just jumped out in the great unknown, right? And then after a while, you are forced to get into your creativity. But I'm an older guy. I've worked with so many people over 25 years. There are certain things that I won't put up with anymore from anybody, no matter what, right? So, I mean, I can, and it's not that I won't put up with it. It's just that you can't teach somebody. If you present yourself in a certain way, you're going to trigger people, and you'll trigger them into healing cycle. The idea is to heal the bonds, the wounds between us, so that we can work together to create together. Because anytime I try to sell you something that you already possess within yourself, and this is the last thing I think that will finally move out of tarot card readers. Right? Tarot card readers eventually will finally move into some kind of co-creative element of some sort, right? We have to, because if we don't, we'll never create heaven here. We'll always be buying into a system that gives someone the power to control the energy between you and I. And this is what churches do good. And this is why I was going back to community. Churches are very powerful entities when it comes to building communities and letting people understand what the people's needs are and each other's needs. And when it steps outside of church, most of the time, all kinds of business ideas and contracts have happened within churches. I guarantee you, right? People that get to know one another, go to the same church, and then hey, let's start a business together. Maybe start a nonprofit. All kinds of things like that. So it's a good part of community, and your community. You should always be rewarded for your community time in some way, right? All of us who are working and trying to do anything, are putting our community time in to get something in return, some kind of return. Whether you're, for me, it's just been book writer, YouTuber, trying to partner with people to build something, failure. And maybe obviously that failure happens for a reason, right? So you have to constantly review yourself. I've had to constantly review myself. Why have I not been able to properly influence somebody to help them understand that if we build something where we're getting the same incentive, all we're doing is putting the right boundaries in place to make sure that we're working with people that have the right intent for each other. Because when you have to create equal exchanges of energy with any good relationship in order for it to grow. And then that you're creating something with that relationship. That's what happens when we find our love, the person that we fall in love with. We want to create something together, at least on our own time. But then, and if one person is given more power to create in that relationship than the other, then eventually that relationship will grow dysfunctional. That's how intimate relations fall apart, right? When you're not equally co-creating what you want for each other, and you learn how to do that. It's relationships are not easy because sex, in and of itself, right? The basic sexual attraction that attracts us to one another. If we're concentrating on that, that's our receiving element. We're not really focusing on creating something for somebody else. Instead, we're primary focused on what we're receiving on our root chakra. Right? So yeah. I'm just rambling on a YouTube channel. I mean, maybe somebody will hear this and resonate with what I'm saying. But think about the since we're not co-creating together and we're not creating these equal exchanges of energy, we create systems to escape the reality that we're in, like games. How many people are playing games? How many people are trying to escape the reality that they're in? Not seeing the world that we could create together just because they're not created. I have had this vision since the time I was born. It's the one thing that I can honestly say. I always knew that we could build a better place, and the only thing that was keeping us from building a better place was judgments of one another. The only reason you'll ever negatively judge anybody else is because you're negatively judging yourself, because you're holding yourself accountable for something that you do not know. How can we hold ourselves accountable for something that we are unaware of? Right? There's such beauty around us, right? And the only thing that really matters is connecting at the heart space. All the other stuff, and this is one of the most difficult things that I have personally had to overcome, is once you get connected to the heart, it's like I love everybody unconditionally, I accept everything for what everybody else is doing. Whatever you're doing, I don't care what it is. You could be a mass murderer. It's just you're unconscious of how you're harming your environment, right? It doesn't matter where you put yourself. If you make your bed in hell, I will be there walking with you. And it doesn't matter who you are. There's a part of you that will be walking with everything else in this universe forever, at all times. The I am, the great I am. There is not one thing that you will ever see, meet, feel, or experience that isn't connected to you at your heart space. And so it can't destroy you. That's the fear, right? That's the fear that creates the reality that we see around us and the world that we've lived in. Fear of death, the last enemy. There's no reason to fear it because you cannot die. But the fear will drive you into reality that you don't, is not necessarily good for your state of mind. Creates you in a lower energetic state where it feels like you need to feed off the world around you or you are going to die in some way. And that's the one state that pulls you out of heaven. Now, Ascended Masters have created that state internally and then know that you just have to teach it and make sure that people understand how to do it for themselves. And you can't follow money. And this is why. Because this is all temporary. Everything around us, right? Money's temporary. Buildings, cars, the way you look, all of it. Does not matter. Totally temporary. That's the hardest part to get over when you get into that state where you finally detach from all that stuff, the external, and you're at the zero state, and you realize that that's the only time you're ever going to be in a pure state of peace. Well, I'm not going to say that. You can get that way and get to a point where there isn't anything out there that it negatively impacts you. You'll have no emotional response whatsoever. And a lot of times that will put people in a negative emotional state because it can trigger you into something. So that's the answer to not only that, but you're actively trying to create equal exchanges of energy with the people around you if you're not following money, right? That's what forces you to grow, to make sure that you're supporting your environment naturally without any expectation of return. And it gets you to a state of being and unconditional love that you'll never get selling a service, because that selling a service, you're always going to be in some state of fear. So you have to project, in order to sell and do it the other way, sell first and receive second, instead of just creating and naturally receiving, means that you never get to a point, you'll start to try and surround yourself with people with the same wounding. That will be your focus. Well, people, you'll call it a certain state, but it's actually a wound you're sharing, because you're afraid that you're not going to be supported in the future unless you sell a service. Whatever it is you're creating isn't naturally attracting what you need, or you don't believe it is. Maybe it could be that you just had to master yourself and continue to master yourself. And actually, that's what's happening in the group collective right now. I had thought about looking at MSN, just going through news articles, but I mean, I've already made this video long enough. If you made it this far, then you've heard a guy ramble about spirituality and the state of reality for, I don't know how many minutes now. It's 9 o'clock here. I had a beautiful day. I got to spend lunch with my brother and talk to my mom's best friend that I hadn't seen in quite a few years, which is really cool. She took care of my brother and I from 1979 till about 1984. It was a good time. My brother was trying to be cornered by Wesley Allen Dodd. We were talking about that today. And if you guys don't know who Wesley Allen Dodd is, he was the first hanging in the state of Washington in like over 100 years, because actually, shortly after he tried to corner my brother, one of my friends, I wasn't on the school grounds. We lived right next to an elementary school. And my mom's best friend's son, oldest son, was coming towards our house, and then he saw somebody take Ken into a shed, my brother, and raced to the house and said, "Billy, somebody took Ken," and his brother Joel, his brother was there too, and my dad raced over there, but that nothing happened, and he had gotten his car. It was Wesley Allen Dodd, got in his car and took off. And later he moved out of the area, and that's when he started killing kids. He was a child murderer, molester. Terrible. That's why they hung him. It was the yeah. But we've always had a blessing over, our family. And it's something that I want to share with you guys. And there's a reason why there's a blessing. It's because no matter what happens, we always look out for one another. You'll never understand what I'm talking about unless you felt your mother's and father's love from heaven in every moment of the day. I don't think I need to talk about that anymore. Oh, I've broken down in tears so many times, in certain aspects, especially when something happens specifically that so this is the ministry, right? This is the ministry. You're hearing the ministry that teaches, that Jesus taught, right? Seek ye not, those things that are temporary, those things that will never take with you. That's why unconditional love is just a description of the state of being where you realize that whatever it is that you, when I run into you, whatever it is you're doing or not doing, makes no difference to me. Because I know that all of us are creating our own reality, whether we realize it or not, right? the Father and I are one. Except sometimes there's a disconnect, right, from your higher self. And when you finally feel that it connect, especially when something happens and you realize it, it's like the sun's still shining on your back, even if you can't see it. You're just in the dark side of the tree. Right? Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop talking. I've rambled on enough for tonight. Yeah. But I love you guys, obviously. Yeah. So, live long and prosper. I'll see you in the next video. Well, I might as well pull an oracle card. I mean, let's see what kind of oracle card we get. What do you guys want to hear? What kind of? I mean, it's never like they don't make any oracle cards that are super dark, right? I mean, can you imagine having an oracle card that said "Death looms over your soul" or something like that, right? Wouldn't be true. Maybe that's why. Let go. Let go. I guess that's what we're being told to do right now. Just let go. See you guys later. Bye-bye.